Pues como decía Tony, vamos a escuchar ahora la experiencia británica, la experiencia alemana, y en primer lugar a Sam Hall. Sam dirige una think tank que se llama Conservative Environmental Network, que lleva desde el año 2014. Y aquí lo que creo que nos va a explicar, entre otras cosas, es cómo trabaja con los políticos. O sea, cómo esto asesora y está cercano al grupo parlamentario y los diputados del Partido Conservador. Y luego os presentaré aquí a Weber, que nos va a hablar de la experiencia alemana con un enfoque más hacia las fuerzas del mercado y la innovación. En fin, Sam.
Luis y Tony, muchas gracias por invitarme a este evento y felicidades por lanzar esta nueva organización OIKOS. Es un gran placer estar en Madrid con ustedes. Perdóname por no hablar en español. Mis estudios españoles fueron hace muchos años. I'm going to talk about the experiences of Green Conservatives in the UK, with Conservatives having been in government since 2010. Every country, of course, has its own distinct political culture and unique circumstances, so I recognise that not all these points will be directly applicable to a Spanish context. More loudly. However, I hope the British example might provide some ideas and maybe inspiration for our Conservative friends in Spain. And I'm looking forward to the discussion later and hearing more about your experiences in Spain dealing with this issue. So in my presentation, I wanted to make 3 points. The first is around the role of climate action in the political success of the Conservative Party in the UK in recent years. The second is how the UK Conservative Party has been able to marry climate action with a strong economy. And then the third point is around the need for Conservatives globally to be more vocal and to own the climate issue. So firstly, a bit of history about the Conservative Party and climate change in the UK. So since 2010, the Conservative Party has won a series of national elections whilst having a strong climate policy focused on green growth. In the run-up to the 2010 election, when the Conservative Party was seeking to return to power after 13 years in opposition, David Cameron made the environment a major priority. And at that election, the Conservatives were able to win many urban, socially liberal constituencies and get into power, in large part because his emphasis on climate change had detoxified the party's image. Then after a bad election result in 2017, in order to boost her appeal with younger voters, Theresa May made the environment a priority of her government. She published a clean growth strategy. She put a net zero target into legislation. She committed to using new regulatory powers after Brexit to strengthen our environmental commitments, and she bid successfully to host the COP26 climate summit, which was hosted last year in Glasgow. And then when he became leader in 2019, Boris Johnson continued this strategy and raised the ambition on the environment further still, making delivery of net zero a top 5 election pledge. And then in recent years, most of the Conservative Party's messaging around climate change has really focused on economic opportunities presented by new industries such as low carbon hydrogen production, carbon capture, or green finance. And polling consistently shows that the majority of the UK public believes that man-made climate change is happening and supports action on climate change. And this is true across all demographic of voters, including among Conservative voters. Recent polling that we commissioned at the Conservative Environment Network showed that weakening climate policies would make a quarter of Conservative voters less likely to vote for the party. And even now, with energy and food prices surging, climate change, according to a recent poll, remains the 3rd most important issue for the UK public after cost of living and health. So climate policies have been able to unite the Conservative Party's voter coalition. They appeal beyond the metropolitan voters to working class voters because they've also encouraged this investment into our former industrial areas, such as the north of England, where businesses are now investing in battery factories and in offshore wind blade factories. For decades, these industrial areas have failed to provide opportunities to local people with the loss of manufacturing and mining industries in the 1970s and 1980s. But it's with net zero that these industries are getting new jobs and new hope and new pride. And I'm not claiming that climate policy has been the decisive factor in winning any of these elections, but I think it's been what pollsters refer to as a hygiene factor. In other words, a significant portion of voters would not have listened to the Conservatives on its economic message, on our economic message, without that strong environmental platform underpinning it. Turning now to my second point about how the Conservatives have been able to marry climate action with a strong economy. So I think the UK Conservatives' decarbonisation record shows that centre-right climate policies can deliver both for the environment and for the economy. So in the UK, we've seen a decoupling of economic growth and emissions reduction. Emissions have fallen by 40% from 1990, which is the largest reduction of any G20 economy, and our economy has grown by 78% in the same period. The emissions cuts have mostly been achieved in the electricity sector. The UK has the second largest offshore wind sector in the world after China, and coal is now only 2% of our electricity mix, having previously been 40% in just a decade ago. And this has been achieved because we've seen significant cost reductions in the price of renewable energy. The cost of new offshore wind farms is now a third of what it was in 2015, thanks to a policy introduced by a Conservative government of clean power auctions, which have boosted competition and reduced the cost of capital for wind farm developers. And we've seen lots of jobs come from this as well. Already, there are 200,000 jobs in the green economy in the UK, mostly in renewables and insulation, with many jobs concentrated in the former industrial areas. And recently, the Prime Minister announced a new plan for a green industrial revolution, which he hopes will create 250,000 new green jobs by 2030. Moving now on to my final point, which is that Conservatives, I think, around the world need to be ambitious on the environment in order to succeed politically. So I think it's critical that Conservatives put forward their own distinct climate policies, or we risk ceding the policy solutions to the left of politics. Socialist parties want to deliver climate goals through high levels of public spending or through state direction of the economy. Green parties want to curtail people's lifestyle or abandon economic growth in order to protect the environment. Centre-right parties must provide an alternative, creating policies to attract private sector investment in clean technologies, prioritising and going all out for green growth, and keeping down the cost of energy for the public and for businesses. And if we don't put forward our own solutions, we risk ceding a large